I want to share with you the number one free water secret you need to know in the coming collapse. Just a warning, you might not survive the water crisis without this. But the good news is, if you know how to turn on your tap water, you're overqualified to use this simple secret. So let's get down to business. The world is running out of clean drinking water, and as humans, we can't survive without it. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. The Earth's surface is 71% water, but we can drink less than 0.036% of it. And most of the water we can drink is in a giant lake in Siberia. And the way the population is growing, polluting and destroying nature's water filters, we're going to be out of water soon. Some scientists say around the year 2030. The good news is we've got some time. 2030 is a pretty long way off. Don't get me wrong. I'm not thrilled about the idea of having to figure out some way to live without water, but there's not a whole lot we can do today. But here's where things get tricky. If you live in the U.S. and use well water or city water, you may not have that long. That's why I made this video, to show you the simple free water secret. It'll literally let you stockpile as much water as you want without having to buy a single bottle. And the timing for this video couldn't have been better. Here's why. Lately, the U.S. government has been trying to do what it does best: cover up what's really going on in the water crisis. It's not surprising. Just like the economy, it's too big to fix, so they just go into debt and pretend like everything is great. But the feds have slipped up on a couple of vital details. Number one, we're wide open to terrorist attacks on the water supply. And number two, we're using a water system that's 80 years out of date. We're talking pipes that are 100 years old in places like Washington, D.C. No wonder we had 250,000 water line breaks in 2010 alone. But there's an even bigger problem. You might not realize it, but your tap water could be poisoning you. And that's whether you use a well or city water. But don't take my word for it. Here's a clip from an article published in August 2011. Quoting, they're talking about the U.S. here, have the safest drinking water in the world, except for the pesticides that sometimes sneak in, and the rocket fuel, and the antibiotics. End of quote. Long story short, they're saying our water isn't safe at all. Now, this might sound like some fringe conspiracy theorist, but it's not. This article was on the front page of Reader's Digest, a magazine who is about as far away from shaky theories as you can get. So if they're picking up on it, you know the situation is obvious. They go on to talk about the many scientists who found disturbing chemicals in our tap water. Stuff like bisphenol A. If you haven't heard of this puppy, you should check out Alex Jones from InfoWars. He's found some pretty disturbing stuff about how this has turned male mice and rats into females. Literally. And as a pretty strong hunch, the same thing is happening to us men in the U.S. Another chemical to learn about is fluoride. This isn't my area of expertise, but there's a lot of very smart people making some strong statements. You might be surprised to hear that many experts are maintaining that the government is using fluoride in the water to dumb us down and make Americans easier to handle. This sounds about right when you look at the current generation of teenagers. But whether you believe any of those or not, here's the one that got me. You know all those extra pills people don't use? Pills for everything from birth control to artificial hormones to painkillers. They're flushed down the toilet or thrown in the trash and end up in a public landfill. No big deal until you realize those same chemicals that are illegal to buy without a doctor's prescription are showing up in our water, and after you drink it, in your body. Not that big of a problem since there's only a little bit of it in the groundwater, right? Well, that's what I thought until Dr. Frederick von Saul from the University of Missouri explained that some of these drugs can hurt you, even if there's a teeny tiny amount in there. They get into your body, look like a hormone, act like a hormone, and can screw things up pretty bad. Bottom line is, it's been proven over and over pharmaceuticals are in our water. But before we get to the water secret we're here to talk about, let me introduce myself. My name is Damian Campbell. You might have seen some of my presentations being passed around Newsmax, Town Hall, or WorldNet Daily. I'm the author of Survive Anything and the 37 critical food items sold out after crisis. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 people have read my guides, and over 1 million people have seen my food stockpiling presentation in the last few months alone. But please don't think I'm trying to show off by telling you this. Honestly, this part gets a little uncomfortable for me. It feels like bragging. Please understand, I just wanted to let you know that I'm not some yahoo or conspiracy buff up here spouting the latest doomsday nonsense at you. But here's the most important thing you need to know about me. I'm a red-blooded American, and I'm proud to say it. This water crisis is potentially the biggest threat America has ever seen, but I don't plan to go down without a fight. Anyway, that's enough about me. We don't have much time, so let's dive right in. You need to know this one weird water secret to survive the U.S. water crisis. This can be the difference between having plenty of crystal clear drinking water for you and your family or thinking a dirty mud puddle is an oasis. Now, before we get there, one thing you need to realize is even Uncle Sam is starting to pick up on this crisis. California, Texas, and Florida all have publicly stated they're in a water crisis. You can see them yourself if you check Google. And the EPA says at least 36 states are expecting water shortages, even in non-drought conditions. But here's why you should care. The more obvious it becomes that the U.S. is in the middle of a water crisis, the more the feds are going to try to lock down the cheapest and most effective ways to purify and store water. After all, what better way to push the liberal collectivism agenda than by controlling a resource we can't live without? So, please, take a couple of minutes to watch this entire presentation. Turn off your cell phone, close any other tabs or windows. I think you might be surprised what you learn. Hopefully, by the end, you'll completely understand the secret to having pure drinking water, even in a crisis. Honestly, right now our tap water, even with all the crap in it, is better than nothing. The problem is, we're wide open to a terrorist attack on our water supply. Think about it. We guard power plants, but we don't guard water. Which do you need more to survive? Exactly, water. But back in 2003, the FBI issued a big statement saying we weren't at risk. Supposedly, our water is completely safe from a terrorist attack. The logic they used was it'd be impossible for a terrorist to dump enough bacteria in a reservoir to poison us. And you know what? They're actually right. The problem is, just because they're right about the reservoir doesn't mean that's the only way a terrorist could hit us. There's a much simpler method, and they've got to already know about it. It's almost too easy. Anyone can open a fire hydrant, shove some chemicals in, and poison an entire neighborhood. Or they could just strike the place where all the water comes together, the water treatment facility. But the scariest one to me is a dirty bomb. Whether you're on a well or city water, if they hit us with a dirty bomb, it'll make our groundwater radioactive. And everybody knows that kind of water is the kiss of death for your internal organs.